me, not you. Hello, and thanks again for joining us for another Fathom Live. Welcome to the show today. Maybe this is your first time. Either way, get to sharing and commenting because we have another contest today. I'll talk about that in just a minute. We had a contest last week that I do want to follow up on, and that was with our guest, Brandon Howard. He is offering 100 leads and then 50 and 25 respectively to the winners who commented during the show in the first 25 minutes, as well as anybody who shared it leading up to the show. So we have those names here. We're going to draw them like we did last week, and then see who our first, second, and third place winners are. And then I'll talk about this week's contest as well. So give me just 1 second here. This is it. This is the magic bag for our contest winners here. So we are going to, without looking here, our first place winner is Jennifer Stockel or Stunkel. So Jennifer, we'll be in touch with you. So you get our first place prize of 100 leads for an upcoming listing or maybe a current listing that you have, and we'll get you in touch with Brandon for that. And then our second place winner for 50 leads is Melissa Collier. So you get the 50 leads, and then last one here, Austin Shaw. So very good job there, getting on and commenting. So this is where it's starting right now. So if you comment and give us a shout out of what city that you are hailing from or your market center, you do that in the first 25 minutes of this show, and you're automatically eligible for a free yard sign package, and we'll be in touch with you about that. So you can win a free yard sign up to a $200 value. And we can help you out working with maybe a local dealer that you have used before, or help you to find one. But kind of a fun contest today for that. So also on that note, if you want to ask a question besides just shouting out on Facebook during the live stream show, feel free to do that on Facebook or YouTube. That's also where the contest is going to take place. So if you happen to be watching this on Twitter, it's just not another feed that we're able to follow during the show. Comment on Facebook or Twitter, and comment on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll be able to respond to that during the show if we do have time. So thanks for all of you who are already commenting here, Cher and Brenda, Angie, Brittany, Shay. So keep it up, guys, and you can share this during the show as well. If you haven't yet, also subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find us at Fathom Realty on YouTube and click the little notification bell, and it'll let you know that we're going live when we do. So feel free to do that. Our guest today is Krista Abshure. But before we bring her on, if you're like me when it comes to social media, posting stuff on your feed or on your page is typically the last thing from your mind. If you're like me, now some of you are really good at it. But our good friends over at Go Social Agent, they can help you out with that. They are social media experts, and they particularly are doing this for real estate agents. So they'll help you set up your account, automatic postings on a regular basis. The regularity is the key there. Agent-branded articles, buyer and seller handbooks for your clients' Facebook ad campaigns. So this is all to help you grow your online community and generate leads. So if you're a Fathom agent, again, you get some of this stuff for free, but even if you're not, really good pricing for that service. So learn more at GoSocialAgent.com. We're so glad to have Krista Abshure with us today from Cary/Fuquay, North Carolina. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for inviting me.
So Krista is a team leader in the Fuquay area there, and has been in real estate for years, and is also a district director. So Krista, let's just jump right into things. I understand that you are also an Air Force veteran, correct?
Yes.
And that's where you met your husband. Tell us a little bit about that.
So funny story. So my husband and I were both in basic training together, and he was actually in my brother flight. And so we went through basic training together, went off to tech school together, And then we dated for about 3 weeks in tech school before we got married.
Wow. Wow. Waste no time.
It's but we celebrate our 28th anniversary this year, so we're good.
Congratulations. That's right. That's right. Very, very
Thank
good.
you.
By the way, thank you for your service as well as your husband's. What has the Air Force background done as far as helping you out in your real estate career, if any?
I think that the most important thing that the military taught me is just paying attention to those small details. Those small details make all the difference in the world, whether it's preparing to take care of, my job was physical therapy, so whether it's preparing to take care of a patient and understanding the whole aspect of their condition, or just the training manuals to make sure that we have the knowledge for what might happen.
Very good.
So
now, one of the things, and we're going to get into this is a little bit later here about knowledge base and learning and how that really sets you up for a good experience with your clients. But you've talked about, as we talked before, the difference between a transactional agent versus a relational agent. What does that look like?
Well, I definitely like to think that I'm more of a relational agent. A transactional agent is one who's kind of one and done. You know, they establish that first meeting, they run out, they show them houses, get them under contract, and they're moving forward. And once that home closes, they might never keep in touch with that client again. Whereas a relational agent is kind of what I like to think I am. And it just kind of planned out that way because I'm probably just a relationship person. We build relationships from the first time that we start talking with these people. And by the time it gets to closing, some of my very best friends that I have now have become that way because I met them initially selling them real estate. And so being in that relationship with them has definitely made the sales transaction easier to get through and also prepared us for long-term success with other future transactions down the road.
So there's people that have friends that become clients, but in your case, you're saying, I mean, a lot of these clients then become friends because you've everything's been built on that relationship.
Yeah, it's funny. Sometimes we'll be out somewhere and I'll look around the people that are around us and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I only know these people because I sold them houses at some point and now they have become dear friends to us. So this business has definitely given me some amazing friendships.
So as a district director, that role that you're in, as well as a team leader where you manage your own team, are those things that you try to instill in the people under you?
I think that teaching them that, you know, and in something as simple as Facebook, right? When you're working with a client, you're helping them make the largest decision of their life most of the time. And whether that's a $100,000 house or a $300,000 house, they're trusting you. And I don't know how anyone could do that and not become personally engaged with that client. And when you do that, that relationship just builds after that because they trust you.
So as it relates to being a student, and I know that you're constantly learning, and I always ask people for a fun fact, and you said this isn't very fun, but it falls into that category. You annually read or at least review the state real estate manual. That's just what you do. Does this help you fall asleep at night, or?
So I think you had asked me what I was reading lately.
That's what it was. Okay, that wasn't a fun fact. That's what you were reading lately. Okay, all right. My bad. Not fair.
So what I was reading was I was rereading the real estate commission book. We just had our forms updates come out July 1, and so I think that we need to be very familiar with those forms. So went through, read all the updates on those, and then I was like, you know what? There's a couple of spots I need to hit in that manual again. So I went back and started rereading my real estate manual.
Well, very good. So on that though, how does being a good student and really increasing that knowledge base, how does that help you have a smoother transaction?
I think that it does all pull back into what I was talking about in the Air Force, like learning to pay attention to those small details. There's some verbiage even in the like the FHAVA addendum that so many people miss because they just get used to filling in the blanks and not reading those forms. And so when you start to pay attention to those little details, that can make a difference on how well you're able to prepare your client for the transaction, how well you're able to prevent bumps before they ever come and become an actual hurdle that we have to cross. So I think that just being prepared by knowing all of those little details that you can possibly control makes a huge difference.
Very good. Now I want to ask you about best practices as far as preparing your clients for the upcoming transaction. But I want to first mention, I want to prepare my viewers. So I was going to mention this earlier. This Face app thing's been going around. We're gonna show you, in case I am doing this 50 years from now. We'll just say 50 years. If I'm doing this 50 years from now, we'll show you at the end of the show what that would look like. So that's just for your, I don't even say your viewing pleasure, but maybe intrigue. But
as long as we're only going to do it to you, not me.
No, we're not screenshotting any. No, this is just my ugly mug. But if I want to prepare a client for that transaction, what does that look like?
I think that obviously it looks a little different whether you're working on the buyer side or the seller side. But for me, I think that sitting down with them at the very beginning of the transaction, when you start looking at houses and start giving them some insight on the buyer side, giving them some insight like, hey, once we identify a property, these are going to be some steps that we're going to be looking forward. These are some monetary items that you're going to need to be prepared for. So when we start doing those small steps at the very beginning, maybe the very first time we talk to them, then when we get at that time and they've identified the property, the one they want to write the offer on, the one they fell in love with, we've already talked to them that, hey, you're going to need to have X amount of money for due diligence or X amount of money for earnest money. These buyers are prepared versus when you sit down with them and then you say that and they look at you with blank stares in their eyes and they're like, oh, but I was getting 100% financing. What do you mean? And they're not ready. Right. And in my opinion, when that happens, it's not the client's fault. I think we as agents have failed our clients to prepare them for the next purchase process or for the purchase process. So that's part of that. And going through the entire transaction, when we can prepare them, okay, this is what's going to happen up until we find the property. Once we identify a property, we talk about your next steps. And it's continually talking about what the next steps are going to be. Because if you leave them to think about it on their own, they're going to think of the worst case scenario.
Right.
And they're going to be nervous that you're not thinking of the next step. So if you can always give them that guidance ahead of time, it will give them peace of mind.
Now, you're an advocate for even walking through pretty much all of the forms. In the past, having bought a home, bought or sold homes, sometimes you get a document and you just kind of scan through it real quick and you hit that, signature button pretty much on there. But you're an advocate for really walking people through all those forms. Why would you do that? And how extensively are we talking?
So one of the things that I believe is that an educated client is much, much less likely to have a stressful or a bumpy transaction. And part of that education is what we just talked about, preparing them for the next steps. But also, it's about them understanding what they're signing. I have clients when I send over documents to them, and they'll be like, oh, I'm just going to sign it and send it back. I'm like, no. Please stop. Call me. I want to walk you through those documents. When we do that and they understand what they're signing and they understand what stays and what doesn't stay clearly, versus what they just glance through really quickly. When a bump happens in a transaction, they're already prepared about it because we talked through that potential as we reviewed their forms. So the offer to purchase, I'm probably on the phone with my clients when they're signing documents about 30 to 45 minutes because I want to make sure they understand everything that they're saying.
So when, like you're saying, when that bad thing happens or a fork in the road or something you got to do, they already know that you've thought ahead about it rather than, okay, now I need to tell you this. You already went through it on the form.
Yeah.
I can imagine a newer agent when you're dealing with all of this legal language and yeah, you've gone through real estate school and you've had some training, but you're going through all this language and somebody asks a question, you have no idea what they're talking about. The reaction might be even beforehand, I don't want to go through all these details because I'm afraid of what they're going to ask and I'm going to not have an answer. How do you prepare to be able to effectively walk through those forms and to be able to answer those questions?
I mean, I would like to think that the agents, we have a mentor program at Fathom, so they should be practicing that with their mentor if they're brand new agents. But even as like an individual agent who came in and maybe was doing it on their own, we really want them to pair up with somebody. We want them to find someone that they feel comfortable running through those forms with. And if they are really a loner and that's not something they want to do, you can always do it in front of the mirror. Like, just make sure that you know them. I think so many times when I talk to agents and they ask me a question about a form, what I find out is they haven't even really read it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So when you take the time to read it, or I'll take the time and we'll walk through that form together, myself and that agent, and I hear it in their voice where they're like, ah, I got it.
Right.
And when you hear that got it, then you know that they can then sit there and have that conversation about that form with a client, and they're not going to get that deer in the headlight look when the client asks a question. So preparing that, sharing it, doing it with a buddy who's going to do forms with them.
Great. Actually practicing. That's excellent. So
Practicing is important.
right. Yeah. I mean, and that way you can kind of throw those questions at each other along the way. What do you say to the agent? Let's say, they're dealing with multiple clients at the same time, and they say, man, I am just way too busy to actually have a sit down meeting for every single form. What would you say to that agent?
I think we do a lot with DocuSign nowadays, but I also think that sometimes we can use it as a crutch because it gets sent over. Our clients sign it real quick and they get it back to us, but then they didn't understand what they were doing. I would still say, tell your client before they do that, let's have a conversation. Please do not just sign that document and get it back to me. And in the few times that the clients do sign it and get it back to you, call them back and say, hey, I saw you signed everything. That's really awesome. Can we walk through it really? I want to make sure you understand everything. So I think that even that half hour is going to save them time. And when they're really busy, they need to save time.
Right, right. One of the things that you mentioned was helping your agents create flow systems and checklists to stay on track. What does that look like?
So I created, everything's an evolving process. So when I was a brand new agent, I stumbled through everything. And one of the things that I learned while stumbling through everything is I never wanted to see another agent have to stumble through things. And so as we grow in real estate and as real estate changes, we've just created a forms checklist. My forms checklist that I have goes right from like the very first time that you meet a client up until after closing. So it is super detailed for those that need it, but yet you could also gloss that. So it's, you met with them, you set them up in a search, you called them and checked in with them. So it's all the minute details that are so important.
As you've talked about the, developing that knowledge base and even actually getting out into the field and having those issues, you've mentioned some stories where just knowing some of those details, having done your homework, it's really saved your bacon. Could you speak to that just briefly?
Sure. So in that same type of checklist are different types of things that we as agents should check on. And sometimes you don't think you have time to check on those because it's a multiple offer situation. But when you take the time, you might find some things. One of the things that I found that were undisclosed were when I was representing a buyer was easements being undisclosed against the center of a backyard. The wrong person signing all the executor documents for an estate, spouses that were absentee on deeds. And the reason that all of those, for those of you that do real estate, maybe you could get that contract canceled and get your client's money back, but they've lost valuable time. They could have missed another perfect property while they were tied up in this one because the research wasn't done.
Right, right. There's this guy, I don't know who, his name's Josh Harley. He's been commenting on the video here. Anyways, he said, yeah, you'll build trust and increase your chances of getting referrals. And I was thinking the exact same thing. It's kind of like when you go to a restaurant and the waiters or waitress is just never there. And you think, well, man, you just sort of feel left abandoned. But as a client, knowing that your realtor is always ahead of you and they're ready for those shifts and turns and they're communicating that with you, that leaves you with the best feeling of security as a buyer or seller. So, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I remember one time I sat down with a client. We were getting ready to write an offer, and I had done all that preliminary research. The guy was over the hills. He was in love with this house. And when we sat down to write the offer, we literally discovered that the easement was going to run right through where he had planned on putting, I think it was his in-ground pool or his fence. And there wasn't anything about this home that didn't check off a box for him. But as soon as we saw that, he backed off. He wasn't going to be able to achieve the last thing. And although he was sad, he was so grateful that we hadn't tied up 3 weeks for him to discover this by paying for a survey. So some of the best things that I've found might have prevented my clients from getting those homes, but ultimately they were so grateful that I put the work in ahead of time. So I think as an agent, we need to put the work in ahead of time.
Great example. I want to kind of shift gears here, and we talked about a little bit of this together, and that is work-life balance and time management. And I think most of our viewers know I'm not a realtor. I'm the show host. So I asked you, and I kind of anticipated the reaction, but I said, do you ever take weekends off? And you laughed. Do you ever take Saturdays or Sundays off? And I know that's kind of the prime time a lot of times for showing homes and doing your work as a realtor. But that being said, you chose not to get into real estate, even though you kind of had a desire for that, but you chose not to until your youngest was in kindergarten, just so you could dedicate the right time to them and also to your business and also be present for your family. What does protecting that time look like as it relates to interacting with your client?
Mm-hmm. I think that for me, it was, again, a growth. My husband is really good at kind of controlling some of that in a nice, loving way. But learning to set my phone to do not disturb. It's one of the best tips that I give to all agents when they first come in and meet with me is set your phone on do not disturb. Have some time that's just for you so that you can decompress. Now, that doesn't mean if I'm negotiating an offer, I'm not going to answer my phone, but my phone goes off at 8 o'clock at night and no one's going to get through unless it's an emergency. But my clients can call me. They're still welcome to call, but they know because I've set up that expectation that I'm probably not going to be answering after 8 or before 8 in the morning. They can reach out when it's comfortable for them, but they know that unless it's an emergency, I'm not going to be reaching out until after 8 o'clock the next morning. Do not disturb is your friend in real estate. You must have it on your phone.
Right. So it's setting the guidelines in place, but it's making sure that your clients know both of those things. I can call you when I need to, you can call me when you need to, but just know that I probably won't answer during these times. So
I mean, how many real estate emergencies happen at 9 o'clock at night that couldn't be we can't fix them through the night, so we're going to be fixing them in the morning anyway.
Would you say though that there's negotiables as far as times that you want to protect the family time? Are there times when you're with your family and you got to pick up the phone and deal with those kind of crises or just continued business?
So I think for me, when I started in real estate, when many agents start in real estate, as well as myself, we think that we're going to have this amazing flexible schedule. And I think what we learned quickly is it's really not our schedule that we're bending to, it's our client's schedule. So it's super important that we set up what's negotiable for us and what's not negotiable for us. And for me, my non-negotiables were my children's events. It was very important to me to be an active mom. And I say it's not that I don't still have kids. They're just 18 and 22 now, so they don't need me as much. And but I never missed any of their events. And I say, did it come at a cost financially? Not missing their events definitely had some times where I might have lost a client over it. But in the long run, I know that I was doing the right thing. So I think when you're setting up your negotiables or your non-negotiables, you need to know truly what those are. You need to be willing to pay the financial consequence for that. So hopefully you're able to, or maybe decide, hey, once I get to X amount, then this item becomes a non-negotiable, but you have to have a list.
Right. With that, do you take calls on vacation? Do you take work on vacation? And if not, how do you have a true vacation as a real estate agent? Because one of the things that we've mentioned time and time again is that real estate is one of those, it's not a salary job, obviously. So it's like when you stop working, the money stops flowing. So how do you take a real vacation where you can actually relax if you do that?
So that's kind of a twofold question. My real vacations, my husband started insisting years ago that we go on a cruise once a year. So when we go on our cruise, that is my 100% time off zone. Like it is the only time during the year I don't answer phone calls, I don't answer emails, I don't do anything during that time. But for like those little weekend getaways or time in the car, my rule is if I'm with my family during that time, I might have to take a business call. That's just, the nature of this business. But what I don't do is take personal for fun calls. Like I'm not going to be in the car with my husband and children and take a call from even my best friend who I love dearly. Because my business takes me away from them often enough. I can talk to her at another point when I'm not with them, and the only time they really need to lose me is when I'm doing business.
That was one of the things when we talked before. I thought it was really interesting that that it's not just rules for clients; it's even rules for when you answer those personal calls, just to be able to protect that time. Like if I absolutely have to answer the phone,
That's right.
it's gonna be for a client, not for something I don't really need to do right now.
It's not that I don't love my friends; I love them, but
Right, right. Well, I think that's excellent. And on that note, again, congratulations on coming up on 28 years here. That's really exciting. And putting those barriers in place, I'm sure, is a factor to that. So, kind of switching gears again, you've been a team leader now for several years, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, 8.
8 years. I just want to kind of explore that with you a little bit, and not only that, as we said before, you lead as a district director, so you're overseeing people on a broader level, not necessarily on that direct income level that way. But what have you found to be the most difficult parts of leading a team, and what have you found to be the most rewarding parts of being a team, or being a team leader?
Let's talk about the rewarding part first, because
Okay.
that's the part that makes you stay doing it, right?
Okay.
So for me, the most rewarding part is when I can see an agent's growth, when I can see them start to develop confidence in their statements, when they come to me not to ask a question, but to verify their answer is correct. When you see that growth in an agent, it's rewarding to know that you've been a part of it, and it's just nice to watch. And the other thing is just, when you see the way the team starts to interact and they all start to mesh together, that's awesome to know that you had a part in that.
Right.
And so that's something that I love about having our team.
How do you set that tone? I mean, how do you create that kind of environment in your team?
I think it's just that we all feel like we can talk here, right? It's an open environment. The way we have our office set up is very conducive for that same type of environment. They've got spots that they can go sit in and talk quietly, but we also have a main table that we might work out of, all of us at once. And the conversations that come out of just sitting there working, maybe we read something that's super interesting and we spit it out, and then the conversation that comes out of that is a lot of knowledge and growth that happens.
On the difficult part, is there anything you want to share there, or should we move on?
Yeah, no, I'll share. So I think that one of the hard things to do about doing a team is realize that, one, making those good hires, right? Making sure that
Right.
they're a fit. And I know, as Samantha Giuggio would tell me, I should give everyone the DISC test, but I don't. So I think that just learning that not everyone's a team member, whether it is because they don't have long team goals, or they have long-term, or that they have long-term individual goals that don't mesh with the team goals. So it depends on what that is. The other thing that I think over the years I have kind of learned is that old saying, hire slow, fire fast. If you see something going wrong in the team, kind of learning that we need, and it's an ever-growing learning, right? But kind of learning that we need to nip it in the bud quickly. That would probably be my number one team tip.
Very good. Yeah. Yeah. In your experience then, as it relates to building a team, do you build a team around leads, or do you build it around mentorship, or is it a combination of those?
I think it's a combination of those, because you can give anyone as many leads as you have, but if you haven't taught them how to handle those leads and how to lead by example, as far as like working with the leads, then it's going to flounder anyway. So if you're not going to take the time and mentor them, and you're just going to hand them off leads, you're just burning dollars. And
Right.
that's no way to have a long-term survivability of a team.
So are you still actively working with buyers and sellers, or are you now kind of in a team leader position at this point?
So I love real estate. So with that being said, I still actively sell. I sold, I think, 51 homes last year, still personally,
Wow.
and our team did over 100. I just still really enjoy that aspect of getting in there and making that difference with clients.
Wow. So where did all those come from? That's like one a week.
If you I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, probably. So I work by referral only. And so when we were talking about, the details and building those relationships with clients, those are all clients that I've just kept in touch with over the years. Excited for them when I see something happening that's going on Facebook with their family and making sure that they know that, hey, I see that. That's awesome. I'm so excited for you. Just keeping that relationship alive because, they trusted me and now it's there. So those kind of referrals are coming from those long-term relationships.
So then, as it comes to your team members, I mean, you're a high producing agent yourself. Do you what kind of expectations do you have for them on a production level? Sorry, I turned all blue here. The sun went behind the clouds, and we have a window. But um, so yeah, as far as production, what level of production are you expecting, or is that not even how you sort of gauge things?
I think it's a little bit different. So when we bring an agent onto the team, the question for me that I ask them is, what is your goal? Are you someone who wants to sell 12 homes this year? Are you someone that wants to, knock it out of the park, sell 20 or 30? That their answer for that doesn't necessarily tell me if I'm bringing them on the team or not, but it does help me achieve their goals. And if it means that maybe I bring in an extra person on my team that has a similar 12 level production goal, that's okay because we can all become better together. Even if some of them are doing 12 a year versus 30 a year, they're
Right.
still going to bring individual experiences to the team that increases the team's knowledge base. So I think that that's one part of it that I just want to know what they want. What do they want to get out of being on a team? And then the second thing, and that's really more of an accountability level, is, hey, if we bring you in and you're on the team, we do need you to be answering phone calls and keeping up with our database, making sure that, we're accomplishing your goals. So to me, that's the other level of it, the twofold part.
So they kind of, in a sense, they're setting their own bar. I mean, you're working with them on that, but they're setting their own bar,
Right.
and then so you're just keeping them accountable based on what their own goals are, rather than saying, hey, if you're going to come on my team, you better be doing 20 deals a year, and you better be generating at least 2/3 of those or whatever. You're just helping them achieve their goals, and if they match what you're doing, then or match what you're hoping for as a team, then they're a good team member.
I think so.
So, as it relates to being both, you're a leader in the broader real estate industry as a district director, but then also, dealing with a team. What would you say is the most important characteristic or trait or traits of a person that wants to be a leader in this industry?
Um, I think sincerity to help others. If you show how much you care and you are active in those different type of associations or what have you, when they realize that you're real and that you're doing your involvement for the right reasons, then that the business will follow. It's sometimes you see people out there and it's rah rah rah, but you don't ever get that same feeling of compassion, whatever it is, and you can tell there's when we get a real estate license, so many agents are told, oh, go join this, go join that, go join this. And then they're like, well, it didn't work. Well, in my opinion, the reason it didn't work is it didn't come from their heart. So when I first got my license, I remember I got active on the PTA. That was important to me. But because it was important to me, it showed. And I ended up building relationships with teachers and fellow members of the PTA who I now still have long lasting relationships with. And several of them have bought and sold homes with me. And that was when Ethan was in kindergarten. So keeping those relationships, finding something that you are very passionate about and trying to build your business around making those connections.
So you've been a team leader for 8 years, let's
Mm-hmm.
say, I mean, you're still doing a quite a high production number. What would you say to somebody who is looking themselves to start a team? And we've talked with different team leaders along the way here, and you're hitting a high production level yourself, and you realize, hey, I'm out of time to be able to continue to grow this, and I want to scale it. What advice would you give to somebody who is going into wanting to start a team?
So, like, are you saying if they were maybe doing 12 already, or I think for
Yeah, I mean, we've thrown out different numbers kind of with a different guest, and some people would say never start a team. I mean, unless you're doing at least 30 transactions or 25. I mean, you want to be doing a lot more than that before you even need to think about starting a team. Others will say no, go ahead and they want to right out of the gate. They want to start a team, and just curious what you would say to that, and how you would go about doing that.
So I took growing a team very much to heart. I wanted to make sure that when we were bringing in people that we did a lead source. So we wanted to make sure that they were getting enough leads to be productive to help them meet the goals that they wanted to meet. So I think that if you're going to start a team, your first question that you should ask yourself is what is that team member going to get from me that they couldn't get somewhere else? What blank am I filling in their life to help increase their business? And if the only answer is to increase your pocket, then you might want to reassess why you want to have a team, because they deserve more than just coming in and trying to help you make more money. They deserve for you to give them a little bit of education along the process.
And would you say that that very first team member is somebody that should be an agent, or would you hire somebody in more the administrative level?
So the books say that you absolutely should hire someone in the administrative level first, and then you can increase your production up. And then when you're hitting, whatever your max out is with your transaction coordinator, then you hire a buyer's agent. I didn't do anything by the books. So first, my husband and I were a team together, and then he stepped away to do a different profession, and then we brought in someone who helped do. I didn't even designated that they had to do buyer's agents. I said, you can buy, you can list. I don't care what it is, and we just grew with that single team member at first, and then we still did our own transaction management. But technically, the books say, and I know Josh Harley would say, that we are supposed to bring in a transaction coordinator first.
So at this point, do you have a transaction coordinator in-house, or do you use a third-party company like On Target, or what do you do there?
We do not use a third-party company. My son is 22, and he's actually in the middle of getting his real estate license right now, and he's been handling my books for a while. And now he also handles a lot of my transaction management, my files upload. I'm still very hands-on with my client, so I have a little bit of problem letting him do anything else. But all of my paperwork for compliance portion, he handles into my Intella agent account. So
very good, yeah. So keeping it in the family there, that works well. Well,
someday we've got to do something.
Any last advice that you'd give on any of these things? Time management, building a team, leadership, or knowledge base. Before we let you go, we really appreciate so much of what you've said. All of what you said, but appreciate you so much for the things that you've given us today.
Yeah, I just think probably the number one tip that I would want someone to walk away from would be just, an educated client is going to help you through your transaction so much more, because they're not worried. They're not making the 6 phone calls to you because they're worried that you're not on top of things. So if you can educate them and prep them ahead of time, in and of itself, it's a time-saving measure, as well as they're going to start to trust you more. They're going to know that you're knowledgeable about the transaction. So educating your clients, I think, is what it all boils down to.
Very good takeaway. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming on and giving us so much good information and heart and experience. So thanks for coming on the show, Krista.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Before we let you go, though, folks, we did promise you that we were going to show you what this show would look like if I was your host 40, 50 years from now. So we'll bring that on in a second. But before we let you go, beyond that, want to remind you, visit GoSocialAgent.com for all of your social media needs as a real estate agent. Also, Fathom Realty offers 100% commission and the tools designed for your success, including things like stock with every transaction, KV Core, truly affordable healthcare, paperless transaction management, multi-tiered support system, and much more. So you can visit fathomcareers.com for that. Are we ready to go with the picture? We're ready to go. All right. So this is what it's going to look like if I continue. There it is. If I continue hosting for the next several decades, I don't know. This is a pretty stressful job. This might happen in like 5 years from now. That might be. I might need to get out of this business sooner than that. So we'll see. Next week, our show guest is Chris Spear. He is a high producer, a team leader. He's been in the real estate industry for over 2 decades. He has experience both as a broker and a loan originator, so a very unique perspective there. He's an expert at building client relationships. We've heard a lot about that in every show, but what I love about that topic is there I am again. We got to get that picture out of there. Is that every time we get somebody that is really adept in that area, we always learn something new. We have a new perspective on that, and maybe it would work for one agent and not the other. So looking forward to having Chris next week. Again, we're here every Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Central Time. Thanks for joining us.